There are good cult names, and then there is the Divine Order of the Royal Arms of the Great 11. Which involves hiccups, which is how you achieve a higher entity. You pass the threshold.
I got drunk on cuppy towels.
It also has a Plan B name, which is the Blackburn Cult, which is also pretty cool. Like, you're going to do it right in the mic, or what's the deal?
I can't control it. It's my calling.
The cult apparently drew its inspiration to act upon a single verse from the book of Revelations, verse 11:3 to be precise.
Tell me something that'll shock me, and then...
Oh, I did Father Yo too. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Cured.
The cult apparently drew its inspiration to act upon...
I need Amy McPherson, or Amy Simple McPherson to heal me.
Book of Revelation, verse 11:3 to be precise. I'm going to roll through it. And I will grant my 2 witnesses power to prophesy for 1,260 days. So away we go with that single verse from the book of Revelation. So it's 1924, 1 year after Sister Amy miraculously returns from a vacation. It starts with a mother and daughter living in Bunker Hill. The mom is May Otis Blackburn, who is 60 years old, also a clairvoyant, so we know that she's legit, and her daughter, who's 24 years old, Ruth Whalen Rickenbaugh Rizzo.
Was he related to Rolf?
Yeah.
Old colleagues.
Did I not put together that both my stories have Muppets in it?
Did I not realize that the leader of this one's name is Kermit?
This one was looked over by 2 older gentlemen who always sat on the side. You really like that one.
I'll edit them into sound effects.
I'll edit all my hiccups into one laugh. Curbed LA put Ruth perfectly as taxi driver and serial rich man grifter Ruth Wayland.
That did not deserve a hiccup.
One day, walking around Bunker Hill, the angels, Michael and Gabriel, appeared to the girls and proclaimed that the gals need to shut themselves off from the world for 3 years and write a book about the sixth sense called The Great Sixth Seal, which would explain...
It'll be turned into a movie in 100 years.
You better have it as a comic book first, and then it'll be a better movie, which would explain the mysteries of life, health, and the afterlife in heaven. Gabriel and Michael also promised to reveal the lost measurements that would lead to all the hidden gold and oil deposits in the world. The story of the lost measurements is that they were stolen from Noah of Noah's Ark fame by
that old bootlegger.
I
made myself a
guy. I'm drunk on all this Noah talk.
So Noah tall.
Noah's son Ham. I didn't know Noah had a son.
Yeah,
named Ham.
He might have taken the names of one of his shipmates. Did it again.
My breakfast inspired me. So Ham stole the lost measurements while the ark was under construction.
Another brother named
Denver Testicles is the brother's name.
They were known as Rocky Gomorrah oysters. It worked. That's a keeper.
And that's all fine and good, but what maroon is going to believe all this hogwash? Well, Clifford Dabney, nephew of the oil magnate...
Of course someone named Clifford Dabney.
Nephew of the oil magnate Joseph Dabney of the Dabney Oil Syndicate would come and tell me that it was not hogwash, and it was just super normal, and so normal and legitimate, in fact, that he offered the Blackburn and Wayland $40,000 in cash and 164 acres in the Santa Susana Knolls in Simi Valley some 40 years before the Manson family would gentrify this area with a new breed of crazy pants. I mean, he gave this to them over time. Dabney might seem like a dullard for this, but keep in mind that the lost measurements were in his grasp. How Dabney got mixed up with this is pretty easy. In 1924, November, Clifford and his wife Alice met the Blackburns probably around Bunker Hill and started talking about the book that she was preordained to write, and that the solar system would be in the right correlation for the book's publication in February of 1925. But they also just needed that some startup cash for the printing of it. Along with the lost measurements promised to him were also the secrets of resurrecting the dead, along with the secrets of life and death, the location of precious metals and stones, which I imagine was the lost measurements, how to get power from air, a radio communication with different planets, as well as spilling the beans on how the Dabneys could undergo transfigurations to a divine nature. So they of course decided to join and were inducted into the order through the medium of a Concord and $500 cash. Much later, when asked in an official capacity, meaning in court, whether the Concord always called for cash,
under oath,
putting his hand on a real book of faith.
The Dianetics.
They asked him on the stand if the Concord always called for cash, and Dabney replied, checks, cash, or chickens. I thought,
do you accept chicken?
Well, I have a lot of chickens, which is the other son of Noah.
The triplets.
I thought he just gave the cult a truck full of chickens, but apparently one day in the compound, he wrote a check for $325 for 600 chickens. These chickens were supposedly meant to represent the bird's head or the sixth seal of the Great Sixth Seal.
God. Make it out to poultry. Care of Nugget.
Fun piece of Dabney lore.
I love this segment of our show, Dabney lore.
Raymond Chandler came to work for the Dabney Oil Syndicate in the 1920s as a bookkeeper and auditor in their LA office at Signal Hill, and eventually became office manager and vice president before being fired 10 years later for being a goddamn alcoholic. But because he had testified for the Dabneys, two of his oil pals offered him $100 a month for living expenses, which he used to stay put, drink, and hone his writing skills. His novels stem from that. Back to the cult. So the cult of about 100 people moved from LA to somewhere called the Harmony Hamlet Retreat in Simi Valley.
Related to the Hamburger Hamlet, the offshoot of the very vegetarian Source restaurant.
You didn't know that Hamburger Hamlet is full of Illuminati symbiology?
Look at your pickles next time you order, okay?
Harmony Hamlet was above the Chatsworth Reservoir, where they built a dozen cabins and a temple that they filled with furniture, which included a massive gilded wooden throne that rested on 4 hand-carved paws and adorned with a lion's head. This temple was sealed off from the members of the order because it was meant for Jesus upon his return. So what was the day-to-day like? Well, if you were a member of the Divine Order of the Royal Arms of the Great 11, then you worked at a local steamy tomato packing shed, and the entirety of your paycheck was collected by May Blackburn and her grimy and goofy-looking husband, Ward Blackburn. Now, Ward is a known creep. I found a picture of him which shows his long handlebar mustache, but it doesn't show his 5-inch long fingernails that I read about.
Ew.
The Blackburns always arrived in a big black car driven by a bodyguard to protect them and the secrets of the last measurements. At night, the members would usually watch the high priestess kill mules. They referred to them...
Again, people didn't have cable back then.
Remind me what things look like when they die.
Last night on mule killing, I killed a mule.
Oh, it's the season finale of mule killing tonight. According to some of the force rangers on duty, after the animal sacrifices, they usually would just dance around naked. Now, there are reports of a woman named Jenny Blackburn, who was May Otis's mother, but the paper that I read this from says that she was 65, and another thing says that May Otis was 60, so I don't know how old either one of these women were. Otis's mother was on the compound. They called her Grandma Jenny, the queen of the scale. Grandma Jenny was chained to a bed for 2 months to establish a point of religious oscillation. In the LA Times, she said that she had the keys to the padlock, and the chains were long enough so she could at least go downstairs. She said her concord of the musical scales, hence she was the queen of scales, called for her to be at her point of oscillation, and the angels would tell her daughter when to release her from her chains.
Again, this is cult terminology that only makes sense to them.
It only makes sense to people who are making things up.
Yeah, who've watched a mule get killed every night during sweeps week. Tonight, a donkey. They jumped the donkey, which is where that phrase comes from.
So I think before they moved to Simi Valley, they were set up at Wilshire and Western. Ward Blackburn acted as a weatherman with a coffee can and counted cars on Wilshire Boulevard as he was instructed to by the women as to keep his ass busy with nothing work. He said that when the weather was clear, he made a record of it, and when it rained, he made a record of that too. The coffee can was to measure the rain and record it.
2 cups of rain today.
Oh boy.
It's a full roast of a night tonight.
When they moved to Santa Susana, they made him count trains. Well, they only kill animals, right? That's fine.
They kill animals, don't they?
That's fine.
They shoot horses, don't they? That's fine.
That's fine.
The sequel.
There was that one time where there was this 30-year-old woman named Florence Turner, who was a member of the family from Monterey Park, who had a blood malady, and to cure her...
Blood melody or blood malady?
Malady.
I thought it was like a Disney cartoon.
Well, we
Bloody melody.
They had a fascination that they thought they could unlock mysticism with hot and cold. Keep that in mind. So this Florence Turner had a blood malady, and to cure her, they put her in a brick oven that they made.
Oh no!
In order to bake away the illness.
Did they give her a glaze at least?
Their defense was, we didn't keep her on the entire time. We rolled her over and lowered the...
We wanted her to have an even cook.
We don't know if it worked or not because 2 days later she died.
Wow.
So we don't know if it was cured or not because she died.
They baked someone to death.
Yeah, but not they didn't set her on fire. It was over time. It was like a slow roast.
They Dutch ovened her. No big deal. A human goulash. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's probably maybe the second most ridiculous thing. Then there was this other thing that they're kind of known for. So there's this wealthy family, the Rhodes. William, his wife Martha, and their adopted daughter Willa, who moved from Oregon to Southern California just to join the Blackburns and bask in the glory of the Sixth Seal. Willa became a high priestess to them known as the Tree of Life. Well, why did they call it the Tree of Life? How this happened was on Christmas Day 1925, Willa complained of a toothache, and from this toothache she developed an infection, and on New Year's Day she died. No foul play there. The Rhodes turned to the Blackburns for help, and they filled the holy bathtub with holy ice and some spices and salt. They laid Willa's body on it and said that she was a tree and would spring to life in 1,260 days. But just past the 2-year mark of their dead daughter rotting in a bathtub, they had to move her a couple times. And by the way, to move their dead adopted daughter from place to place, they put her in the back seat and propped her up. And it was noted that she was so well preserved that people, upon first and only glance, thought that she had not been dead for 2 years.
Wait a minute. So they kept her in ice in a bathtub for 2 years.
Probably not in the bathtub the whole time, because I think they moved in this 2-year span, but they were moving her around, and she was preserved.
And she was supposed to sprout anew
And live, which relates to the Bible passage that they had.
Yeah.
So the Rhodes finally settled in a bungalow in Venice.
It's like if the Bates family had more family members.
They had another bathroom. The Rhodes finally settling in a bungalow in Venice, more specifically Marco Place, which is just off of Venice Boulevard near Lincoln. So they built a metal coffin and they put Willa in it with spices, no more ice. She was gonna just naturally decompose. Buried next to the priestess was 7 puppies that were dead. I had to look that up before I can continue writing. That represented the 7 tones of the angel Gabriel's trumpet. So while everyone is waiting for Willa, the high priestess, to rise from the dead, May Otis Blackburn returns to her craft, writing. So now it's 1929, and the Blackburns have not revealed the lost measurements, and Clifford Dabney is, of course, pissed. So he sues the Blackburns for fraud. So the police start looking into the cult, and they hear word of these missing people, in particular 4 members who cannot be found. While this investigation is going on, they go to the Rhodes bungalow, they dig up the high priestess herself, Willa Rhodes, and they're like, wow, okay.
Where did these puppies come from?
Who built this coffin? That's really neat. And that's not good for anybody. Along with that, more members start coming forward and suing the family for grand theft charges totaling in $50,000, which they collectively earned from all these dopes. So while sitting in jail for these charges, the angel Gabriel once again appeared to May Otis Blackburn and assured her of her...
I don't know you guys.
My hands are clean. I'm an angel, my hands are clean.
I have dirty faces, as all angels do. I may be your Patreon saint, but I am not affiliated with this.
He assured her of an acquittal. The angel Gabriel, that is.
Where'd he learn that term?
You've been watching Law and Order?
Law and Order Spiritual Victims Unit.
Gabriel was wrong, and the Blackburns were charged with 8 of the 15 counts of grand theft, and they were released on $10,000 bail in 1930. I don't know how courts work. They couldn't find anything apparently on the 4 missing members, although I found one article from the Brooklyn Daily Eagle says that authorities had found the buried body of a woman from Portland named Harlene Satoris, who had died of an illness. So maybe it's another one of these natural deaths but unknown burial things. So she wasn't murdered. May Blackburn once tried to get a pharmacist's wife to join the order, specifying that they needed a pharmacist to prescribe poison to kill Ruth's husband, Sammy Rizzo. This was not something that the Blackburns wanted to do, but the angels told her that shit needed to be done. She didn't give her poison, but she did give her something that Blackburn thought was poison, but really was just colored water. However, with that allegation, police could not locate Sammy Rizzo and never did. So there's that. Then there's this. The following year, the Supreme Court ruled that testimony about the cult's weird rituals was wrongly admitted at the Blackburns trial. Turns out this is a free country and you have the right to religious worship, and they
bury whoever you want, wherever you want.
Yeah, exactly. There is no foul play here. Really, the courts couldn't do anything about it. Like, again, like Willa died naturally, other girl died naturally.
Is it against the law to have your daughter in a bathtub
It
after she died?
probably is, but
because if it is, lock me up.
I remember a couple years ago.
Lock me up. Lock me up. That's Trump supporting Hillary Clinton.
She was their prophet, and they had rights to religious ceremonies. So if you say, oh, religiously we thought she was going to turn into a tree, you gotta kind of let them slide.
Religiously speaking,
we thought she was going to turn into a tree.
Your Honor, in my defense, I thought she was going to turn into a tree. How many times have I claimed that in court?
So at that point, Blackburns and the Divine Order of the Royal Arms of the Grade 11 Cult reportedly moved to Lake Tahoe and were never heard from again.